Welcome back to Talk of the Town, and I'm joined now by our news partner, Phil Anderson for U.S. Senate. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thanks for having me.
And now, as always, we always just hit the hard topics, and I love it.
That's what we try to do, yeah.
We just dive right into it. And so today we're talking about the war on drugs, and so I want to know what your position is.
Well, my position is that the war on drugs needs to be ended because it's not really a war on drugs. It's a war on people and their personal choices. So people should be allowed to eat, drink, consume what they want as long as they're not harming anyone else. And the idea that our personal choices are made illegal and then prosecuted in that way, to me, is completely anti-liberty and anti-person.
So I'm guessing your beliefs are as well that the war on drugs isn't really about drug use.
Not at all. As a matter of fact, recently it was uncovered that one of the people in the Nixon administration who was involved in implementing the war on drugs, that they knew at that point that it was really a war on people of color and a war on people, on poor people, and that they knew that from the get-go. And certainly the statistics have borne that out to be the case. But they knew that ahead of time, so I would classify that as not an unintended consequence, but an intended consequence of what they're calling the war on drugs.
Now, has the war on drugs affected drug use, would you say?
No, I mean, clearly not. People's attitudes about marijuana have changed for the better over the course of the war on drugs. If it were effective, then people would not want to be using marijuana and other drugs, but clearly that use has gone up and become more accepted in society, and that's why you see support for legalization in Wisconsin and throughout the country, and rightly so. So I think it's had the opposite effect of what they thought they were going to do, as well as enriching professional criminals in Central and South America who produce drugs to be imported into the United States.
Now, I know you talked about two intended and unintended consequences, so let's kind of go over some of those different consequences from the war on drugs.
Sure. Well, one of the biggest things is that people of color, mainly young black men, have been incarcerated at a greatly higher rate than any other group, 5 times. And they know from surveys that drug use is roughly the same between demographics based on color and class, et cetera. But the black men have been incarcerated at 5 times the rate as white men or other demographics. So this not only has the consequence of black men being in jail, but the disruption of families and incomes, and then people being put in jail for crimes that have no victim, but then being incarcerated with people who are professional criminals and being involved in that lifestyle, having problems getting a job when they get out. All of these other things that have had a huge effect, especially on the black community, a big unintended consequence of the so-called war on drugs.
Now, if you're elected, what's your plan to end this war on drugs?
Well, I'm going to fight like crazy to get this done, and I think that most people in the United States agree that marijuana should be legal. It should be regulated, of course, and whether it should be taxed or not, that's a different story, but certainly regulated much like alcohol or cigarettes are, because certainly kids shouldn't have it. But the problem is that both Democrats and Republicans are in bed with many different industries, because their parties and their candidates accept contributions from not only the pharmaceutical industry, which has an interest in not having marijuana be legal, but also clothing industry, paper industry, energy industry, because those are other uses of hemp, industrial hemp and marijuana that those lobbies don't want to see legal. So that's why you see people like Russ Feingold, for example, be very careful about endorsing marijuana legalization, because his constituents support that, as do mine, and as I imagine Ron Johnson's constituents, they support that as well. But they have an eye towards campaign contributions, and they get lots of campaign contributions from those industries, so they're very careful about it, and they're hedging, and they claim that they're on board, but they're not really doing much about it. As a matter of fact, some of the leading marijuana activists in Wisconsin are calling out Russ Feingold right now and saying, what's your position? What are you going to do? What are you going to advocate for when you get back into the Senate if that happens? And he said nothing.
Okay. So how would your plan as well benefit Wisconsin and the country as a whole, quickly before we go?
Well, it would stop putting people in jail for crimes where there's not a victim and allow people to live freely. That's the whole point of being a libertarian and being a citizen and an American, is being able to live your life as you choose. And the idea that you get put in jail for something that only you're responsible for is ridiculous.
Phil Anderson for U.S. Senate, thank you again for being with us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
And thank you for watching Talk of the Town. You can find us next time only on Channel 57.